Now when we put this in, we want to think about the grain of the wood. It's running up and down the way I'm holding it now. I want that to line up in the gap between the jaws. With this dry wood, it doesn't make too much difference. With the wet wood that we sometimes have there, it's going to warp from one day to the next, and you won't get the whole thing done in one day. But you want to make sure it goes between the jaws so that it will fit when you put it back in, and the jaws will equally hold the end grain and the side grain. If two of the jaws are on the end grain and two of the jaws are on the side grain, then it will move and be not round when you do the next stage. So here we've got it in between, the gap between the two jaws. Tighten it really tight. And we're going to mark, we find jaw number 1, just so we remember which jaw we're using. And we're going to mark on the tenon where that jaw is. So next time you can put it back in the same one. Now if we move the tailstock over, or the tool rest over, and just lightly put it there, we can spin this and we can see that we have it pretty well lined up. Our gap is getting a little bigger sometimes, but this is pretty much the right place. If it were way off, we might want to adjust where it is. What we're going to do is true the outside up first. If it were perfectly in there, we wouldn't do this step, but because it's off just a little bit, we're going to true it up. Okay. And now we're going to be ready to do the inside. Here we can get the tailstock out of our way. Now the grain is running this way, right?
Yes.
On the outside we went from the small diameter to the big diameter, so that we're going with the grain and we're not splitting it. On the inside we still want to go with the grain, but since we're on the inside, the grain is running, so we have to go from the big diameter to the little diameter. We're going this way. If we came the other way, it would split. So we're going to start by coring it out like this. Now notice that even though I'm coring that way, the handle is coming the other way because it's pivoting. The handle starts out here with the bevel at right angles so that it goes into the wood, and then the bevel follows the curve that I choose, and the handle has to come around. I'm going to make this flat. Now you may have noticed two things here. The distance between my tool rest and the center is getting larger as I go in deeper. That means it's wobbling more, so I need to reposition the tool rest so it's closer to the wood. And it's cutting slower in the center. Why is that happening? Why is it cutting slower in the center?
Because it's getting farther.
It's getting farther, but why is it cutting slower?
The angle of the tool?
Not the angle of the tool.
The grain is closer together.
The grain is the same all the way through, so that wouldn't do it. What if I told you that the wood is going by the tool slower in the center than it is on the outside? Now this is spinning at the same speed, isn't it? So many revolutions per minute. How can the inside be going slower than the outside?
The outside is bigger than
The outside circumference is bigger than the inside circumference.
If you had a car and if you put bigger wheels on it, that means it would cover basically.
That's right. If you put bigger wheels on a car, your speedometer won't read the same way as on small wheels. So it's going, the linear speed that it goes by the tool is faster at the bigger circumference on the outside. The inside is revolving at the same speed, but the linear speed almost drops to zero. So you have to cut more slowly as you get close to the center. The other thing you have to watch is not to push too hard. My left hand is not pushing toward the center. The tool is moving toward the center because I'm pushing with the right hand along the shaft, and the bevel is making it go toward the center. I can actually take the left hand off. All it's doing is pushing down to hold the tool onto the tool rest, the anchor part. But I don't need that tool, just to show you. Now I wouldn't have you do this, but you want to make sure that's pushing down, not forward. If you push forward, it can skip across, jam into the wood on the other side, it's rotating up over there, and it comes down and bangs, digs a hole in your bowl, can fracture your bowl, make the handle go up and hit you in the face, or knock the bowl out. So you don't want to push it across, you don't want to hit the other side. So we get the handle way over here, we're going in perpendicular to the wood. Once it starts cutting, I'm only pushing down. And I go slow as it gets to the center. Now at this point you have to think about your design. You can make the thickness of the wall anything you want. It can be really thin, it can be wide. If it's really green wood and it's going to warp, you might want to make it a little bit thinner so that it can flex and not crack. You want to make sure you don't go so deep that you make a hole in the bottom, because then you have a funnel. What we're going to do next is we'd hollow this out some more, but then we want to turn it around and finish the bottom. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Several different ways to do that. We're going to take it out of the 4-jaw chuck. We could put it into a jam chuck. In this case, it's a block of wood that's put on a faceplate that would fit on like this on the inside. We'd line it up between centers. It would have to be held between centers, and now we can work on the outside. We could put it into a jaw that's big enough to hold it like this. Or in this case, we're going to use some padding and put it over our 4-jaw chuck and hold it like that as a jam chuck, inside jam chuck. And to do that, I need to get the tailstock back up. Put the padding in. And here's where the center that we left when we first made the outside of the bowl is going to help us line it up so that we have it balanced. Now, it's turning nice and round, it isn't cockeyed, it isn't swiveled, and we're ready to work on the outside. Now before we did this, we would have sanded the inside, gotten it all smooth. We're doing our finishing and polishing after the total bowl is done. But now we're just going to work on the outside. So here we know we can figure out how deep this is. We know where the bottom of the bowl is because we would have measured it. We know where the bottom is, so we won't go too deep. We could either leave the tenon as a foot, or we can take it completely off, either way. And right now I'm going to leave it, and I'm just going to round the bottom a little bit. Now I might make a design on the outside, make some rim on it, all sorts of design opportunities you can do. I could carve the shape that I want for here. I would leave a little block of wood because that's what's holding it together. We'd take that block off at the end with a chisel. We'd hand sand that part, and then this entire bowl we can take over to the buffing machine and wax the entire thing. So when we're making this, we're going to remember which way the grain is going. We have to do the outside first and make the tenon, then we're going to hollow it. We turn it back around and do this, and it'll probably take you 3 or 4 sessions to make a bowl all the way through. Remember the safety things. You're going to wear your face shield. You make sure you're alert. Make sure you don't have any loose clothes that's going to get in the way. And anytime you use the tool, you're going to pay attention. Anchor, bevel, cut. Anchor, bevel, cut. Any questions?